Hello friends, this is Scott. It's October 30th down at the homestead and it's a beautiful fall day. I couldn't ask for anything nicer. I don't even need this flannel really, but anyway, it'll cool down in the evenings. It's getting down to freezing now and the garden is all picked for what we can harvest, and I'm gonna try to keep the cats off me today. But we got to get some projects done because winter is coming. Now, this is the final kind of video of my compost series of making hot compost, and haven't been able to turn the bins too much lately, but I've got the final bin is all turned. I left the last video off with how do you make 5 or 6 turns with a 3-bin system. So that was my last video. And then this video is going to be screening the finished compost. I've shown you a little bit of that in previous videos, like with the worm bin where I've screened the compost out of there, but we're going to screen it out of here. And what I don't screen out of this is going to go back in the first bin, and it's going to help insulate the worms that I've already inoculated the bin with. And then the rest of the other 2 bins I'm just going to fill with leaves for leaf storage. And that is this time of the year. I mean, I'm going to show you pretty surprisingly how little compost you get from, doing all this work. You really don't get a lot of the good stuff. And I need to collect a lot of bags of leaves. But so far, leaves haven't fallen off the trees much. But I did collect 2 bags of leaves, which I'll show you. I used those to insulate my worm bin. So the worms are all tucked in nice and cozy. I gave them a little bit more manure, and then I put 2 bags of dried leaves in for insulation, covered them up, and they should be good till spring. And then again, next, late summer, early fall, I'll screen that material and use it to, again, fertilize my asparagus bed, which hopefully, does well over the winter. So, but I'm a little bit disappointed with my bins because, again, I didn't make a lot. And I'm going to show you here that, all those leaves I collected and all the flips and all the turns and all the grass clippings from the lawn cuttings really came into what's in this bin right now, because I've not taken anything out to the garden. I've not screened anything from here. And you're going to be surprised at how little you get. So that's why down here I'm trying to develop, I don't know, it's going to be 8 to 15 different ways to make compost, because you really cannot make enough compost yourself. I mean, if you don't make it, you got to buy it, and how do you trust your source or where you're getting the material? If you make it yourself, you know what it is. So yeah, I'm going to show you right now what's in these bins, and we're going to do a little bit of screening. I'm in between graveyard shifts, so I just got out of bed I worked at 12 last night, and I got to go back tonight. So I'm going to try to get this video done. If you see me change clothes, you'll know that I didn't quite get it done in time. So we'll see. But anyway, again, I'm going to show you what's in these bins, and I'm going to take what's in this bin, screen it in my compost screen over here on my wheelbarrow. And then I'm going to take whatever doesn't screen, and I'm going to put it in my first bin where the worms are. And I'm going to use that to help insulate the worms, as well as build the first bin for next year. And then I'll just fill these bins with leaves so that all the worms that are in there will be fully insulated, and they'll be able to live through the winter. People ask, hey, red worms, can they live through a extreme winter? Yes, they can. I bought worms once in my life, and I've always had them since, and they just keep reproducing. You got to take care of them. You got to insulate them and give them enough food and water. Make sure everything's moist. But yeah, worms they're a naturally occurring phenomenon, and they'll find your bins even if you don't put them in there. But again, if you want to start a worm bin, you better buy some, at least a pound, and get going, and they'll mass produce and they'll get you going in all your worms. But yeah, I want to have worms in my worm bin. I want to have it in my static bin, and I want to have worms in my 3-bin system at the bare minimum. So let's take a look at what's inside this bin, this 3-bin system, and you'll be surprised at how little material is really in there. Let's take a look. Like always, we're joined by Mr. Willow, who's going to help us out with this video again. But as you see here, the first bin is just this full. And I've thrown some biochar in here from the fires I've been having lately. But yeah, there's not much in here. But the worms, this is where I inoculated the bin with the worms. And if you remember my last videos, we used to have about half of this bin full and 3/4 of this bin was full. And what I did was I combined this bin onto this bin, then flipped all the material back here, and then flipped it all back here, and then this is where we're going to screen from. And if we look at the temperature, it's just 50 degrees, so it's a beautiful day out here. It's just an ambient temperature. But one thing I've had problems with in the country is keeping this moist. That's one thing I neglected to do on top. So there's a lot of dry stuff here that's not going to screen. So what I'll do is, as I screen it, whatever doesn't go through, I'll be tossing it back over here. So I'm not sure how much finished compost there's going to be. Hopefully there's a lot in the bottom, because that's where it would have stayed moist and it would have deteriorated more fully. But yeah, this is all the materials, literally, from all the leaves and everything that I collected all last winter, and all the stuff through the spring and the summer of all the cuttings and everything else, all the heaping bins I had. This is what I have left, as well as, again, 1 cat. So anyway, so let's get screening and let's see what we got here. I love my 3-bin system. And again, I built this one for the school garden many moons ago, and they got tired of having it there, not being used properly, so I brought it down here. And yeah, it's still working great. It's probably a 15-year-old bin now. But as you see here, I'm jumping into the top amount of material, and it's very dry. And so I'm not even going to worry about screening much of this. I'll throw it on here, do a little screening, and then just chuck it into that first bin. You know, screening is a good thing to do. Again, to collect garbage as well as to get fine material to put out in your garden rather than big lumps of stuff. Could I take this stuff out in the garden and put it out there now and let it just, let the organisms take care of it? Sure. But I want a finished compost. That's what I've determined to be the best way for me. I want loose beds with lots of tilth. And so I just want I want them to look good. So I'm going to screen this material. Now, this is a 1/2-inch hardware cloth. And so it lets a few chunks in it through, but not a lot. Here's a look in the bin. As I go deeper, you see the worms have found their way into this, even the farthest bin. So, yep, those are red wigglers. And as I get deeper in, it's more moist, probably a little bit too moist. So it's either too dry or too moist. That's kind of the life of the hot compost sometimes. But yeah, I'm going to get down deeper, and hopefully there'll be some in there. But yeah, I'm a little disappointed at the amount of material I'm going to get today. There's quite a bit here. I mean, I can do probably a couple garden beds with the amount of material here, but yeah, I'm not going to be able to screen that much. It doesn't look like so. So I'm going to do a rough screening, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on any one scoop. Now, you don't want to overload your compost screen when you're trying to screen. So just you take my busted fork, and I'm just going to take a little bit of material. Again, if it looks too dry or too leafy, I'm just going to throw it in the first bin already. And but here's a little bit more. And again, as I get deeper, it's getting darker, and I'm finding garbage. Yeah, so that's another reason to screen, is you get rid of the garbage so you don't put that stuff in there. But yeah, as you see, I'm not wearing gloves because I like the feel of compost. I think that's my favorite part of gardening is making my own soil. But you'll see later in the video I put gloves on because I had busted a hole in this screen, and I just shoved a 1/2-inch piece of wire in my finger. So yeah, so you got to be careful. But again, I like to have dirty hands, and I like the feel of the organic matter in my hands. But again, I got an injury and bled quite a bit. So if you see some markings on the right side of my pant leg there, that's just blood, no big deal. So anyway, but yeah, good stuff. It's just not going to be a lot of it this year. Now, do I need compost right now? Screening this a necessity? No. I'm not going to need compost again until next spring when I start planting stuff. So this is going to be kind of an on-demand compost bin. So when I need to plant something, I can come over here and screen up some buckets and take it and do the plantings. But I'm really doing this screening today just to finish this series, finish the videos on the hot compost. And in the winter when it's cold, I'll put all these different videos. I think there's probably 5 of them. I think I'll put them all together and break them down into one video so that people can learn how to make hot compost in one click rather than having to go to multiple videos. But yeah, this is I hadn't had a chance to show the whole system in place, so I had to do it in sections throughout the season. And then again, I will show a full video of how to make compost. But again, the spring, a lot of this material will be useful then. Right now, again, it's not going through the screen very well, but as you'll see, I'm going to get a wheelbarrow of material out of here, whether it come hell or high water. So, yeah, because I want to show you how it looks in the garden, and nothing looks sharper than freshly screened compost on top of a garden bed. It's pretty impressive. So, anyway, everything turns gray and turns brown as time goes by, but it sure is nice to see it when when you first put some on a new bed, and stay tuned for that because that's coming. But yeah, this is the work that you have to do when you're making compost. And again, if the material was better broken down, more of it would be falling through. But yeah, I'll get a wheelbarrow out of this. But yeah, just going through it and do a little speed sifting because it is kind of a dry topic once you get going on it. But here we go. I got to give some to the chickens, and that's another reason I'm raising these redworms is I want to give the chickens some proteins, and they like to give them some activity. They like to dig through here and find the worms and the other bugs. This is living compost. This is not sterilized. It's not stuck in those plastic bins and just fried. This material did heat up, but because I have multiple bins, the organic life was able to move out of the way when it got really hot and then move back in once it cooled down. But here's a look at the stuff that you cannot find to buy because, this is as good as it gets right here. Tons of worm castings. It's got some, a little bit of dry, flaky material in there, but it's ready to go compost, looking pretty good. So I did leave some in the bottom of the third bin because I do have worms in there, and I want them to have a good, safe place to live. I will be putting insulation of leaves as I collect them. And I have some material on the bottom here too, so they can live in that, and they can kind of transfer between back and forth. But that's all the material I moved back into the first bin. So yeah, again, I don't need it right now, but in spring I'll rescreen that material, and then I'll start the whole compost process again. So here's the 2 bags of leaves that I got from my magnolia tree in Salt Lake, and I brought them down, and so the worms are nice and insulated. I did grab one more wheelbarrow of manure just to make sure they had enough to eat. So I should have quite a bit there. Got it all covered up, and yeah, I'll see if it shrinks down some more, and I'll probably throw one more bag of leaves in there as time goes by. I want the leaves to be dry at this point on top because, again, wet leaves are not going to be much insulation. So here's the static bin, and I have put manures in here, some biochar and a few weeds. But this is where I'm going to show you here in future videos what I'm putting in here. I'm putting in the bigger stuff, the stuff I don't want to mess with, the viney or the zucchinis and tomatoes and things like that. So let them just sit for a year and just in a static state. I'm not going to turn them, and then I'll work it and screen it and then use that material at a later date. But here's my one wheelbarrow, all that work and all those leaves. And again, there's a lot more in the bin, but I didn't get it this year. But again, right now I don't need it, but just for exhibition purposes, I want to show you how sharp this material looks after I get it raked in. I'm only putting 1 inch to 2 inches down on top of the bed, if that much, maybe even down to a 1/2 inch in places. But material, again, you don't get to make a lot of it, but you don't need a ton of this material on the bed. But that's the best feed you can do for your plants. Now, if you were to throw organic fertilizer or inorganic fertilizers, chemical fertilizers on the bed, your plants will grow more produce, but again, you're not getting the healthiest of the produce. You're getting a lot of just the chemicals. So there we go, living compost. And it's got everything in it, and it's got more life to help continue to dissolve this material into the soil, and then the earthworms will come up and also feed on this material and drag that down into the soil. Well, thanks for watching this video. If you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button. I'm at just over 900. I need to get to 1,000, so do a guy a favor and hit that subscribe button if you like what you see. Thank you.